Great to be here and to see ourselves in this online and in-person recorded forum, which picks up what we've started to do in the last few years, COVID permitting, which is get those brave souls who are standing for Vestry to introduce themselves to us so that we can get to know each other better. Never is that more important than as we come back to each other, grow, find so many new people coming to our parish and reminding each other how this place, how this congregation grows, is steered, finds its way through the competing goods that all organizations face, and especially one like a church that is so stretched with a mission that is nothing less than being and becoming the body of Christ. And in that work, we have huge invitation and opportunity to make all sorts of things new. And those who are responsible for governing the governance of the church are those who are serving on the vestry. So those 7 candidates who are standing for 4 places on vestry across the next 2 weeks will introduce themselves to you here. And from that, you will be able to make your own informed decisions as you vote on the 29th of January, which is our annual meeting day, either in person on that day, online beginning the week before that day. So from next Sunday, the 22nd, voting will be available online. And for those who have no internet capacity or desire to vote online and aren't able to be here on the 29th, there is an absentee ballot that you can receive as well by requesting it from Karen in the office. So and indeed, she is standing at the back of, not church, this is the forum, and that is available for you. Okay, great, they're over there. For those of you who want a masterclass on what serving on the vestry is, I can give you another leaflet so that you are enthusiastically ready to receive my phone call or someone else from the nominating committee next year when you are called to stand for vestry, not because you particularly want to, but because the church and the Lord has need of you. And so that is why these people are standing, some of them hugely interested to find out more about vestry, some of them not so hugely interested, but they know that somebody has to stand and we stand together because they're standing before us. So on that basis, we've got the vestry candidate profiles. And is that what is over there for us, Karen, on the side? I think so. Thank you. And those vestry candidates who are here to share something of their lives, could you raise your hand so that we know which of you are here? So why don't you all stand up, because not everybody is speaking today. But we have from the back, Chuck, we have Kim in the front, Kristen in the back, and Lewis in the middle. And so of the 4 of you here present, how many are presenting this morning? Are each of you presenting? And so do we want to just go first with Kim, you being nearest to the podium and microphone? And we have the welcome to just invite you to come on up here and share what is in your heart.
Thank you, Father. Well, good morning. My name is Kim Lemon, and some of you may remember me from my 42 years as a news anchor at WGAL. But I am here this morning as a sister in Christ with you. And I'm very honored to not only be nominated, but to be a part of this distinguished panel of nominees. And I think you do have a very tough job before you because you cannot make a mistake. All of these are really good people, and I think really have their heart and mind in the same spot. It's not often somebody tells me where to go. I have been a member here at St. James and became involved in kind of a convoluted way, if you will. I was a lifelong member of St. Peter's Lutheran Church, where my mother started the Christian Ed program and also started the preschool program. She was also one of the first female deacons nationwide. So I had a very strong connection, not only with St. Peter's, but of course with my mother there. And when she passed very suddenly, it became very apparent to me that it was going to be difficult for me to be in that space. So I found my way here to St. James. And it was through that entrance into St. James that I was invited to help with the 275th anniversary celebration. And I got to meet many wonderful people and many friendships. I actually retired in large measure because I read a book by Richard Rohr called Falling Upwards. Have you read this? You know about Richard Rohr. And in this book, he talks about how the first half of your life is about creating success and prominence and money and prosperity for your family and your position and your career. But there's a time to stop that. There's a time to put a period on the end of that sentence. And I decided for me, it was time to do that and to live the second half of your life in an upward spiritual way. And that's why I'm here before you now. If I get elected to the vestry, I will be so happy and it will be so great. But if I don't, I will be so happy to serve in some other capacity. So I thank you for allowing me to speak to this position. And I will tell you that as I look on my campaign platform here this morning, I think the thing that I bring to the table, of course, is my long experience with Channel 8, my connections in the community, but most especially an awareness about something, the extraordinary gift. You guys remember this? And how phenomenal that has been and how successful it has been. And it has been successful in large measure because there are not dominations of people creating agendas. There are not Episcopalians, there are not Lutherans, there are not Catholics, there are not Jews. We are all working towards a common good, towards a Christ that is bigger than any organization, bigger than the Golden Retrievers or bigger than the Lancaster Conservancy. So I think in this way, that is what I will bring to the table, those connections and this spirit of outreach that is bigger than St. James, this presence of Christ, even when you don't even know it is the Christ creating $10 million in one day. So I'm very excited about that. The other thing I will do if I'm elected to the vestry, I will make sure that each of us have a business card so that when we go out into the community, we are presenting not only as St. James, but as leaders and create that connection. So I'm very excited about that. I don't want to monopolize everything, but I will say I'm a team player. And you talk to anybody in that newsroom at WGAL, and they will tell you that. So I will be a team player. I will support our brilliant clergy, and I hope I win.
Thank you so much, Kim. What a joy to be able to be together in the energy of this new year, to be able to open our hearts to that horizon of what we hope to find in our ministries and in our offerings of ourselves this season. And so, Louis, you're up next because you're next nearer, and come on up. All that I need is to make sure that you're within the camera lens so that we can record this for those who are going to be tuning in online later.
Thank you, David. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. I took David's suggestion and wrote my comments out, but I just have to say, Kim, I so enjoyed your presentation and you, and I'm so proud to be part of this distinguished group of candidates for the vestry this year. I'm happy to be nominated once again for vestry. And I do hope you will all vote for me because I'm really looking forward to serving St. James in the vestry for the next 3 years. Daria and I have been members of St. James since 2011. And we attended services here prior to that, before we were received into the church by the bishop. In truth, since my retirement 2 years ago, and especially in the past year, I've had time for greater involvement in St. James, in service and in time. And I've been able to step back also and really think about my connection to the church. Carol Hartley and Tom Brooks and George Finney and others have put me to work in service as an usher and in readings. And I've been able, through those voluntary assignments, to enjoy and to be able to meet other members of the congregation. I'm also able to attend programs outside of worship, to step back and observe the workings of the church, the hard work and authentic joy of our clergy, to recognize new members, and to prepare in my own way to join the vestry if that opportunity should arise. I say in my statement that St. James does so many things so well, which is true. But what I also mean is that it serves so many people and meets the different needs that those people have, including my own. I don't think I could overstate the importance of St. James in my life at this time. As an educator, I approached faith with a degree of skepticism, holding back a bit because history and reason and personal history suggest that is a prudent thing to do. But this is a time in my life, and in my view, a time in recent history when stronger faith, a deeper understanding of spiritual values and virtues, and for me, greater involvement in the church is needed. I believe I have a lot to contribute. I spent much of my professional life raising money for higher education institutions, thinking strategically about their mission and values, about current students and future students, and how to advance the mission of colleges and universities. People who know me, some of you have worked with me who are here, know that I work collaboratively with donors and faculty members, with senior colleagues, and those who care about the institution, many of whom have remained friends. As president of Lebanon Valley, I gained an even greater appreciation for the wisdom of groups and the power of a large group of people working together on a shared purpose. I always tried to be the right person in the right place at the right time. My firm belief is that I have a set of skills and experiences to contribute to the vestry and to St. James at this crucial time as we affirm our history and look forward to the future. Father David has talked about the double horizon. The decisions we make affecting the next 2 years will have a determinative effect on the next 10 years. The work I've done over 3 decades in higher education will benefit St. James in planning a future that preserves the history and mission of the church and still allows us to be pragmatic and forward-looking. I look forward to serving St. James as a member of the vestry as that planning work continues. Thanks very much for your support and for listening.
Thank you, Lewis, and for that just beautiful articulation of what we are here to be and do together. The next person, I think, standing nearest us is Kristen, so come on up, and the floor and platform is yours.
Good morning, everyone. Wow, you guys have a tough choice. The slate of people standing is really impressive. It's just so lovely to hear everybody's commitment. I'm a new old face. I came back to Lancaster in 2019, right before the pandemic. And one of the reasons for moving back was St. James. I have family and friends here, but knowing the special community that St. James is, it was a big reason for me to move back here. So right now I am involved with the Altar Guild. I'm also on the Buildings and Grounds Committee. And I've also been working on the Church Art Committee. So I tend to kind of be a back of the house person. And so that is kind of my commitment to St. James, is through service, through action, and working with people and on committees to move St. James forward and to further outreach and to be an anchor here in Lancaster for service. And that is really how I think I express my faith, is through service. So just going to be short and sweet this morning, but thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Kristen, for that, for all that you are and do in that translation of faith into action. That is, I hope, resonating with us all in what it is that we are about this day and this season. My joy now to welcome Chuck, who I think is our fourth and final presenter. After this, there are questions and answers less about the individuals who are standing, but more about the way the church is governed, what role the vestry plays or could play differently as we move forward. What are the gaps and engagement opportunities that we are missing or wanting to see in the coming year? Sort of getting that agenda of yours on the agenda of vestry. Chuck, come on.
Good morning, everyone. It is certainly a pleasure and an honor, more than anything, to be standing up here as a nomination for the vestry along with Kim, Lewis, and Kristen. So I appreciate it. I will say this, I'm one disclaimer before I get started. I know that when we're introducing ourselves, we're using the terms I, me, and my. I deplore those terms, okay? But I know that in this situation, I'll have to kind of bear with those terms. And I'll tell you a story about that some other time. So again, my name is Chuck Smith. Certainly enjoy telling our story with Missy. But I have to, another disclaimer I'll have to throw out. I was going to do this to end, but I think it's important to do it now. I think you need to understand, for sake of transparency, my weakness is that I'm extremely passionate at times about what I do, and I'm also very impatient at times. Secondly, my strengths are sometimes I'm very passionate about the things I do, and I'm very impatient. So I think it's important to understand that. I will say this, regardless of the outcome of these nominations in this election, I am committed to St. James family and our parish internally and externally. So a little quick history of our family. Misty and I have been married since 2018. We're both trying this thing called marriage the second time around, and so far we're kicking it out of the ballpark. We have a blended family. I'm going to talk about my children first, because they're older, and then we'll get into the Missy's gang. Oldest son, Josh, and his wife, Sarah, reside in Albuquerque. They have a 1.5-year-old little boy, Ash, and Ash is expecting a sister in July. My daughter, Natalie, lives here in the area with her husband, Eric. They have 2 sons. Jack just turned 8 on Christmas Eve, and Nolan is 4 years old. And then my youngest son, Spencer, resides right on the other side of King Street on Howard Street with his wife, Naomi. They just had a daughter born on Christmas Eve, Alice Lee. So there's something about the grandchildren being born on Christmas Eve. And I will say this, Jack, when he realized about a year ago, he's got a little crimp in his ear. And he says it's because he was born on Christmas Eve and he's an elf. You know that Alice has a little crimp in her ears. And he goes, see, I told you if you're born on Christmas Eve, you're an elf. So I think Dio may want to check her ears out as well. Christmas Eve. So that's her family. Our daughter, Olivia, which is not my daughter by birth, but she's pretty damn close to being my daughter. Olivia lives in Philly. She is 25. She is a graduate of Temple University. And then youngest son, Bryce, who turns 20 today, still at home, although we don't see him much. He works in the construction business and works a lot of hours. So that's the Smith clan there. In my early life, born and raised in Brooklyn, New York. I'm kidding, okay? How quick y'all were this morning. But no, I was born and raised in Louisville, Kentucky. I have 5 older sisters. one younger brother. Dad really wanted a son. I'm not sure where the second one came about, but it happened. So, but yeah, we grew up in a big family. And I'll talk about church life here in a second. Professional career. The first part of my life, I spent 28 years with a company called UPS, Brown Trucks. Primarily, it was once I went into management in 1982, I started college, unloading trucks and all that fun stuff, but then went into management. Primarily, my background at UPS was in human resources. Enjoyed a great career, Louisville, Kentucky, did a stint in Europe, then was moved to Harrisburg or the Central PA area in 2001. 2 years later, got the call that I was so great that I was moved to Detroit, Michigan. Okay, nothing against Detroit, Michigan, but I had two in high school, one in middle school at the time. So did 6 months in Detroit, decided maybe it's time for a career change because it was quite obvious that I was going to be moving every 2 years. Left UPS, difficult decision to make because it is a great company, but I was starting to see the effect on my children. Started my own business in 2004 as a recruiter here in the area. And then ironically, in 2010, got recruited as the VP of Human Resources at the company I'm currently with now, and it's Donegal Mutual Insurance Company. I do not do the rates, by the way. So I do the human resources stuff. Still at Donegal, my plans are to retire sometime next year, which really, this place where we're sitting right now is a big part of those plans. I'm not sure what direction, along with some of the activities. Church life, grew up in Episcopal Church in Louisville, had a great experience over my youth of being mentored by a lot of great parish priests. And at one time, I know sometimes in my family, they kind of kid me. I had a discussion with one of our priests about attending Swanee and potentially going to seminary. UPS hired me and that all kind of went south on me. So not sure what happened there. But very traditional church life, acolyte, youth group. I remember one year attended the national convention with my father. So very impressive there. Sidebar, during COVID, I was on a Zoom with the Episcopal recovery ministry. And we're all going down the room introducing ourselves. And one individual says, hey, Ward Ewing's on the phone. And I stopped and the guy who was facilitating, I said, hey, Steve, can I just interrupt for a second? It's like, sure. I go, hey, Ward Ewing, this is Chuck Smith. You were our parish priest in Louisville in 1975 when I was in high school. And he just went, oh, my God. So, he is now retired in Tennessee and very involved in recovery. Missy and I were married here, and we, in 2018, prior to that, we started attending services here, primarily on Saturday night. In fact, the first time we came here, it was the night of the music of Leonard Cohen. I remember Father David saying, Leonard Cohen's lyrics could be considered R-rated, but let's have an R-rated evening and take it all in. So I looked over at Misty and I go, yeah, this is where we belong. And so it's been St. James ever since. And we were married here in the chapel, December 7th, 2018. Our children all were attended, so we had a great time there. As far as involvement, we were so fortunate to get just not terribly, that's not the right term, just very involved with the life of St. James when we joined. I am a Sunday morning usher. I'm probably one of those that the choir tends to kind of whisper, it's like, shut him up, stop talking when the people visit. I love, greeting not only just our church family, but the new visitors. Very involved with the addiction and recovery ministry. A year and a half ago, Missy and David and Debbie Miller and I, by the fortunes of our parish priest, were sent to Minnesota for a 4-day conference on Christian addiction recovery. Great experience. So we're going to continue that work. I'm a host for the NA meeting here in this room on Thursday nights. That started off at about 40, I think, attendees, and it's called the Do or Die group. Now, there are times, and I don't know if Linford's in here, but Linford's always getting extra chairs. I mean, that crowd, close your ears for a second, Father David, but that crowd is over 100 now. And and I think I attribute that to the fact that the folks in recovery feel very welcome here at St. James. And that's certainly a compliment to everybody in this room, everybody on Zoom, and obviously our parish priest. In fact, there's a couple of the NA members now attend our men's group. which I am involved in along with my partner in crime, Paul Peachy. We decided last year it was a good time to start getting the men together. So we do that the third Saturday of every month. And again, like I said, there's a couple of the guys from the NA group that actually joined with us. I know that we've had some members of the NA group visit us on Sunday morning. So my point is, people are seeing the hospitality and the Christian love that from St. James. Also, as a result of the other activity, it's not directly involved with St. James, but pretty close to it. Because of the influence of one of the members from NA group, encouraging me to do prison ministry. I now do prison visits on Monday nights. And so I've been involved with Lissa's group and keeping in contact with them. So listen, when you do prison ministry, you're not showing grace just to the individual who's incarcerated. If you're really listening, you're learning a lot of grace. And I certainly can attribute to that. Why my interest in the Vestry? Missy and I are both obviously in the insurance business. And I've used this term before. I think Shane and I were talking one day. I said, I just feel like this place is on fire. That's probably not a good term for somebody in the insurance business to use. But by that, I mean, but there's always been reference to it. We have a lot going on in this church family. And so my interest in part of Vestry is not just the internal, the strategic planning, where we're going to go down the road, but it's also, what's going on outside these doors. And again, I go back to the experience that we have with the NA. I feel that people are seeing St. James as a safe place, a place where they're accepted, a place where they are loved, and a place where they're invited. And so I get very excited about that. I like the idea of business cards, Kim. Shane and I were talking on the phone one day, and I said, listen, if I ever get fired from Donington for doing a little church business on the side, it's probably not a bad thing. And then she said, well, we can find something for you to do out here, so don't worry about it. Okay. So I, when I was thinking about this talk, I was thinking, how can I pull everything together? Internal strategic planning, growth in the church, where do we want to go? And then you go outside the doors and what is it that we want to be at St. James? And this is not me. This is somebody else giving me some guidance. That's the guy upstairs. I'm reading a book about Harry Chapin. I love Harry Chapin. If y'all don't know who he is, singer-writer from the 60s and 70s, unfortunately passed away in 1981. Harry Chapin's songs never makes the AM radio a lot because his songs were more stories and they were too long. But anyway, I'm reading the story about Harry Chapin and the places that his songs took place. And one of the things that he also was very involved in was World Hunger Year. So Harry Chapin gave more than half of his earnings in his lifetime to the World Hunger Year. And in this book, his brother, James, was being interviewed along with the guy who actually still heads up the foundation, who happens to be a Catholic priest. And the author asked his brother, it's like, was Harry a spiritual person? Was he a Christian person? And his answer was, well, actually, we grew up in an Episcopal church, but as Harry got older, for some reason, he started to become a little more agnostic, was never atheist, but was agnostic, really questioning about the church, about the church the whole life and what's this all come together. I really don't see the proof. But he also told the story as the World Hunger Year grew, what Harry Chapin realized is that the people who were really making a difference were people from the Christian faith. So he started saying, well, maybe there is something here in connection. And I kind of use that same analogy as to where we are at St. James. I want to be a part of growing that connection from people outside of this doors. And that's whether it be standing out on the sidewalk on Thursday nights or Tuesday nights, or if it's planning activities here. So I'm very much excited to be a part of that. Kim and Lewis and I had a discussion out on the sidewalk the other night before we had a meeting. We all agree that if whoever wins and whoever doesn't win, I promise y'all, we commit to y'all, we're not going to have a recount and I'll be getting asked to, okay? So personally speaking, whatever the outcome is, personally, I am committed. Lastly, I have to acknowledge Missy, who supports me in everything that I do. I support her and everything she does. So I think I'd be remiss by not ending my talk by acknowledging my great wife. So thank you all very much, and I really appreciate it. And I look forward, regardless of being here as a part of this family.
Chuck, thank you so much. And let's give a round of applause to all those great things. What a great connection to bring us back at the end of Chuck's presentation to what we're about in our worship this morning and this weekend, as we remember Dr. King, as we remember the spiritual growth that is happening not only in church, but in this room, not only on Sunday mornings, but on Tuesday and Thursday nights, and that ability to connect what we do here across every day in this whole campus is the joy and the breadth of our mission. So friends, we have a few minutes left. If you've got any questions about how it is that we order our common life together, a couple of quick words about Vestry. The terms that are being stood for are 3-year terms. You cannot serve 2 terms without 2 years in between that service. And so there is really a steep learning curve, a deep dive into not just the parts of St. James that people know and love, but the whole waterfront. And then in what I hope feels like too short a time rather than too long, you're off and back into the races with all the other ministries that come with being here. What Vestry does significantly is the work of governance, which is different from the work of management. Governance is about the broader 30,000-foot direction of travel. Management is about how far should we walk, given that the weather is this and the path is that. And so the management responsibility is mine. The hiring and firing of the management, which is me, is Vestry's. And so when there's an interregnum, the 2 senior leaders on Vestry, the wardens, senior and junior warden, are those who are responsible both to the bishop and to the congregation and in leading the church. When there is 1 or 2 or 3 clergy, as we're blessed to have presently in our life, then that is shouldered differently. But the senior warden is appointed by the rector, chosen from those currently on Vestry, and the junior warden is elected from those serving on Vestry to serve for a term of 1 year. The other officers of Vestry include a treasurer, who is Mike Schmid, and a chancellor, who is the parish lawyer, and that is Christopher Churchill. And both of those are required positions every year in the Vestry, along with the senior and junior warden and rector. So that's the sort of some of the organizational background of Vestry. And I'm delighted to ask or your questions or reflections as we look to the coming year and what our agenda might be together. Great joy. Elena Woolman is our junior warden, and Rob Bowman is our senior warden. And this coming year, the senior warden will be Bernadette Gardner, and the junior warden will be elected at the first Vestry meeting in the 3rd Tuesday night of February, which is when the new Vestry is constituted, and is where we'll go from there. Great question. Thank you for it. What might you expect to be on the agenda, or what would you like Vestry to wrestle with, or to at least know that they're wrestling with? Are there things in your heart or experience as we either come back after COVID or look at the world around us and want to do something different or more? Terrific question. What are the plans for the library? That's, I can assure you, will be on the agenda of the vestry and will be part of, as Rob Bowman wisely says, a question like that can lead to inattention to lots of other questions because there's so much to think and reflect on about that. And so rather than that consuming all of Vestry's time, we'll need to put together a working group that will take that question and really work on it very hard. The plan that we didn't get launched off the ground this past year is for a long-range planning group to come into existence and for that body to take forward that really important question and work it on behalf of Vestry and report back regularly to it. Say a little more about some other committees if and when the questions arise. In the closing minute, then, I'll say two committees that have been formed in from Vestry this past year, whose work really got launched and off the ground. And that is what is called the Ministries Committee on the one hand, and another working group called Membership Committee. And both of those have had working groups of Vestry members and non-Vestry members who have done a considerable amount of canvassing on of those who are both new and established members of St. James and those outside the community, so that we can think through what does rebuilding membership, growing membership look like, and what are the ministries of engagement that need to be in place for those new members to feel a part of what it is that they are about, as well as forwarding the mission and ministry of the church. So that work is well underway, as well as Kristen mentioned, a third phase of our capital campaign is the churchyard redesign and enhancement. And that work is also underway in an important working group of Buildings and Grounds and Vestry. So you can see that in different modes, this work is done. Any last question before we go to church? Lisa.
The ministries working group, are they in touch with the current ministries that are going on currently?
Great question, and starting to do so. So these are not once and done committees, these are up and begun committees. And that work has started. They've been in touch with some, but not all. And that work is asking the great questions around less the how or the what, but as I've been trained now to understand, the first question that's most important is the why. And so very often that reflecting on why are we doing what we're doing, and then what could we be doing and how could we do it so that we go from, as scripture says, from the glory that we are to the greater glory that we will become. As a management consultant that we are, whose work we're following, as many of you will know, the good to great model. How do we go from being a good church or a really good church to being a better or even a great church? And that is the focused work of Vestry and these committees as we start going. That's an exciting work as we open ourselves to what is going to be a very different landscape as the church recovers from a post-COVID world. So with that, let me thank our speakers so much. Yes. Sorry, Jean. It's a very good question, and I'm not going to have my immediate magic answers to that. Now, who are those who are rotating off Vestry at this time?
Rob Owen, the Groff.
Elena Woolman, and Rob Shingle. So, wow, the power of the group, as we're all saying. Thank you very much for that. I've been tasked with making sure that we had new people to renew the work. So, friends, thank you for your commitment to standing, for saying yes on behalf of us all. We owe you a huge debt of gratitude. All of the rest of you owe a huge debt of translating that into your willingness to stand and deepen your own ministry in a variety of ways here, and to keep sharing with the vestry as they are serving, with your clergy, what it is that you are looking for, sometimes finding joyously, and what you're not finding. And in a perfect advertisement at this point, Patty's going to show us
There's some openings here on the list to volunteer to host for snacks and coffee.
The forum coffee making list, and that is where we begin to do that work of connecting here that is so exciting. And one of the great signs of growth for me of St. James is how alive this hour of time, but a forum has become, with so many being present, so passionate and committed across our faith formation. Thank you all for being here and the opportunity to be in person and online, as we always are. See you, friends.